You want to start?
Perfect. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the very first Data Discussions Live. I'm Kieran Allen, and I'll be moderating the session today. In this series of webinars, we are bringing together overledge clients and industry experts to discuss how cutting-edge data governance tools are really helping modern data-driven businesses to thrive. Today, we are joined by some fantastic panelists, including Teresa Ankic, data governance and data warehousing and business intelligence specialist with over 15 years of experience in the industry. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you.
We're also joined by Andrew Lunt, data governance expert with over 5 years of experience in MI analysis, business intelligence and business development. Welcome, Andrew. And finally, Sharad Varshni, trailblazing entrepreneur, technology exec and CEO of Overledge. Thank you for having us all in your office today, Sharad.
Thank you. It's a virtual office.
So welcome, everybody. I think to start, this is for you, Teresa. Can you tell us what the term data governance means to you?
Sure. To me, the term data governance means the centralizing the activities that establish the pillars that bring together the dependencies between the dimensions of the data disciplines. There are many dimensions of data disciplines that involve security, data quality, data modeling, architecture, and there are dependencies between each of these disciplines that once you establish the pillars that allow them to seamlessly share what touch points they need to share and draw from the other disciplines what they need, they're able to achieve greater, more accurate outcomes while seamlessly sharing what they need to allow other dimensions to achieve greater, more effective and accurate outcomes. So it's the centralization of those activities and the stand-up of the pillars and the participation that, to me, establishes a good data governance program.
Fantastic. Andrew, can you elaborate on that?
I can't. I think to be honest, what it means to me, or how I I guess communicated it to our business is not as elaborate as that. I think I tried to kind of summarize it for our audience, and what I did is I looked at the sort of definition of governance and then came up with my own version. It kind of made sense for our particular business. So, and what I said was that, you know, data governance for me is a continuous process of finding, controlling and cataloging our data, allowing us to kind of stay compliant and organized and ahead of our competitors, but importantly driven by our business strategy. That's basically how I summarized what data governance meant to me. And that seemed to make the most amount of sense for our organization, but it can mean, you know, it's got quite a few different meanings or references which might make more sense to other types of business. So I think it's really important to just come up with what strikes a note with your organization and what gives them the most amount of understanding from what you've said to them. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay. And Sharad, do you have anything to add on top of that?
I think that when I wanted to understand data governance, I had really hard time understanding the data governance. Like so hard that I read the book probably 4 to 5 times to understand the grasp to what really it means. Then I try to understand data governance from the normal human perspective that, you know, we have various part of things we do in our society, and we have a government to take care of various things. So similar to that, there are a lot of data problems are coming. So there is a data governance to take care of all these issues, which cannot be set up by individual people, right? They need a community effort to solve these problems. And there are so many problems for solving those data governance people. Problems like, you know, the security, problems like, you know, democratizing the data, problems like there's so many problems in the data which only the community can solve it. And that is why you need to have a data governance, so that it basically takes care of all the different business departments and the different units and the different data elements, bring those together and kind of have a clear-cut policies and procedures so that and then innovation can thrive in the organization. So this is this is probably where I would see that from at the very high level to see as a kind of like how the government function. And just like you have a very good government, just like a government will take care of security only. There are like that is a major part of any government activity. Similar to the data governance, you take care of all the policies. And if you see that, they will go very negative connotation of that. They're like the government like the Syria and somewhere the dictatorship where only they take care of the part there. Security aspect on there are government like New Zealand or Finland or Australia, they take care of the country's education, healthcare, all these aspects. Similar to that, if the data governance team can take care of the data literacy, the self-service, and more of the giving out to the community, then the data governance really thrives. So that is how I see data governance really is.
Brilliant. And moving on from that, Sharad, when and how did you become aware of data governance, and particularly its role in modern data-driven organizations?
So how I become aware is, again, when I joined the company Hortonworks about 7 years ago, that time the word data governance was not that much, in fashion, but people wanted to move the data into a central platform to solve all these problems of the data, right? So the problems of the data, the problems were coming up at that time, and people realized the data governance is the solution. The data governance has been there around for a long time academically, but really not practically. This was implemented in many organizations. So that's where I think that, and I started building the platform as I left Hortonworks. I started building the platform, and we gave the name Data Catalog, but we didn't know that we are really building a data governance platform because the word was not coming up at that time. It was not very profound at that time. But now everybody have established, yes, data governance is the objective. The objective is the data governance, and we need to fulfill those, provide all these objectives, which is kind of use cases to the organizations.
And Teresa, how were you first made aware of data governance in modern businesses?
Well, I started when data warehousing was an emerging field, and it grew both in definition and complexity over the next few years. But I knew early on that it was going to be an industry standard. And I felt that same feeling when I first started hearing about data governance, that it was an emerging conversation, that there were many people at the table with a lot of variations in understanding and definition and application. So that seems to be the kind of thing that I tend to sign up for, because it's exciting to me to participate in the conversations, to talk about our challenges, to bounce solutions around, and to discover and grow and pass along best practices as they develop and emerge. So it's a really exciting time right now to be in data governance.
How about yourself, Andrew?
I think for me, when I spent many hours trying to solve data quality related issues as an MI analyst, I think I realized at that point that there was something fundamentally wrong with how data was being managed in source systems and in some of the processes that we get data into systems. And so through kind of tracking back some of the issues that came to me, it started to dawn on me that there was a part to how we use and how we apply data in the business that wasn't being managed, and it was there were always a few people that were responsible for aspects of data, but not the whole management of it. And so, yeah, I think it was at that point that I realised that there was a space there for data governance. And then when I moved over to the data science team, and we talked about the organisation of how data science runs, and I talked to the data scientists about how finely tuned and clean data needed to be. we then talked about the pillar of data governance and how important that was, and how all of those kind of issues needed to be resolved in order for that highly tuned machine to be able to run. So yeah, I guess that for me is how it all came about.
Brilliant. So moving on from that, Andrew, drawing from your own experiences, how do you think well-managed data governance benefits businesses?
I think, yes. I think business users are empowered to discover what data is available to them. I think they can suddenly have the ability to go to a data analytics team, or indeed a data science team, and ask the right questions and refer to specific data and its meaning. And I think they've never really been able to do that before, because understanding data, you may well understand the aggregated form of data, but you know, when you're speaking to a data scientist, or you're speaking to you know, an analytics team, you know, they're expecting a different form of information. And I think a lot of people are put off by that. Certainly in our business, I'm speaking from our business, they were put off from that kind of conversation because they didn't really understand it fundamentally. So I think data governance will bring that visibility and that discoverability of data, as well as you know, keeping the business compliance. You know, GDPR compliance states that that all data should have an owner. So you know, that's something fundamental to that legislation. And also the volume of questions to developers, I would say that's another thing that it brings. So developers get a lot of questions about why data is what it is, and where it's come from, and all this kind of thing. And they get asked the same question many times by many different departments, because nobody really understands it and it's not documented anywhere. So, you know, that's one thing that it really does bring, that documentation. So those key individuals, which we would class as almost like single points of failure around your business, you know, if they weren't in one day, you know, things start to, you know, collapse, because all the knowledge is contained in that one person. And it's about extracting that knowledge and documenting it so that it's there available to the people that need to see it.
Okay, brilliant. Sharad, can you shed any light on this from your own experiences, what the benefits are to businesses?
So as we are selling the data governance, I really trying to find what the real benefits are. So I think that if you see from very high level, there are three major benefits of data governance. The first benefit is, I would say, that really thriving the innovation in the company to be at the kind of like to be it's kind of foundation for the digital transformation of the company, right? So if you want to do a digital transformation, if you want to do anything regarding to the more modernization architecture and modernization of the data is the foundation, and the data governance is the further foundation for that. Because unless you have the proper defined practices, you will not be able to achieve those greater outcomes. The second objective is obviously reducing the risk from the compliance perspective. You know, so sometimes that compliance is actually driving, because the innovation, people don't know how to start. The compliance is the one which is driving the factor. So that becomes a boon, kind of like, okay, sometimes the compliance can be the benefit for the organization, right? And the third thing is the reducing the cost of the existing operation. And that reducing the cost can only happen when you already have a kind of a BI department which is not very well organized or very well governed, or that they are using the best practices of the data governance. And since they are not using those practices, that means there are some inefficiencies which can be reduced, and the cost can be reduced. The cost cannot be reduced without, there is no cost there, right? You are starting a new data governance practice, then yes, there is a cost involved in that area. But the number one objective is, I would say, the thriving the innovation. And that, as Andrew said, that, you know, how it can happen. Yes, obviously the collaboration of the people, how they collaborate on the data set, and then all the data at one virtual platform, just like Google did it before that. You realize, oh, this is one tool which is only centralizing the information, but it is highly beneficial, and the time to value becomes so easy to get to that information. So those are the three major benefit of data governance program.
Okay. Teresa, do you have any thoughts on this question?
Just that, you know, I think as you move your data governance program through the maturity model, every participant will have a growing list of benefits for the organization. So there are three top, you know, 4 or 5 that are really sellable as you embark on your data governance program. But then as you deploy your pillars and invite participation, the list grows quite long. It's almost hard for me to settle on one single thing. So that's I would suggest that, you know, when you grow into your maturity model, that as a part of your journey, that you keep track as you start hearing about the different benefits that various departments are obtaining, because some of them came as a surprise to me.
Brilliant. So in light of these benefits, Teresa, can you, even the benefits that came as a surprise, can you quantify the value of a solid data governance strategy? Obviously, as you said, there are areas that will happen that you don't expect. There are times when benefits that you can't predict. So how, as well as you can you quantify what the value of a solid data governance strategy is?
You know, it seems like there's two paths that you can take when trying to quantify the benefits, and that is the tangible and the intangible benefits. Mm-hmm. So I try to keep track of things that I can assign a solid dollar value to. For instance, retiring technical debt. I can usually come up with a dollar amount for that category. And also, I go as mathy as possible on other things that are less tangible. For instance, if your BI department doesn't have a catalog of all of their assets and the ability to peruse that catalog based on metrics and definitions, then it's quite possible that there's probably duplication of effort. And they're quite probably going to, have the same report done 2 or 3 times in that catalog. Oftentimes, that's what I find as we go through the cataloging exercise. So I kind of try to round it up, or, how many hours would you say you either are looking for a report or could potentially be reproducing something that you already have in your catalog, and then start giving estimates of what your savings would be from there. But ROI and data governance is a fascinating conversation, and I do enjoy hanging out in those forums.
Thank you, Teresa. Sharad, can you shed any light on this one for us?
Okay, so I think I would elaborate a little bit more further. What Teresa is saying is that, as you said, there are 3 major benefits for this, improving the innovation in the organization, reducing the cost, and compliance, right? So if you're doing for compliance reason, the value is very well, you can, that what the value is, you can get up to 4% penalty of your entire revenue. So that is the amount which is really high. So you have to reduce the risk of it. So I think the cost of the data governance can be tackled by reducing that risk. If you are a data governance manager, I would say that try to get the value, justify the cost from that perspective by reducing the risk. The second is reducing the technical debt, as Teresa said, but you should have a technical debt in the organization, right? We have a customers who is starting the data practices from the beginning, and they want to start the data governance practice. So they want to do the very good foundation from their very scratch, which is the right thing to do. So first lay out the foundation, lay out the data governance foundation, and then we start from there. So which is they don't have a lot of technical debt, but there are companies in the healthcare sector or they do have a lot of technical debt, and then reduce that. Reducing that, it's easier to calculate, because that you are taking 10 resources to manage your BI department, and when you implement the data governance strategy and do it, can you do it with the 7 people, right? So the 3 people you save there is directly cost benefit of the entire strategy. The third part is like how much is the innovation is coming up, and how do you calculate that assets, right? There's intangible benefits of that. So the first is the easier way of, very easy, is to time to value in the analytics. So sometimes they can do a little bit survey of the people that to find out, okay, we have, say, for example, 100 analysts in our company, and how long did they take generally, you can just find from them to find that, okay, how long it takes to analyze and really find and research the data, how long time it takes you. Somewhere there is a fair approximation that of 20 to 25% of the time they spent on finding the data they are looking for. And now this 25% of the time can be converted to 5 minutes or 10 minutes. That is the direct benefit of their salaries and something, right? So that is like putting a tangible benefit to it, right, on their benefit. But there is a, what the intangible you get out of it is just ability to, like, just a part of the data governance is that the ability to analyze a lot of data, right? Because ultimately they want to get to the hands of the data, they want to analyze it. And once they analyze it, they found some new insights about the data, and what they are able to get out of that, those are intangible benefits. And sometimes it may be possible that because of the data, solid data governance practices and a phenomenal data catalog, they are able to do certain things. Otherwise, they may not be able to possible. Like just like from the Google, we are able to do so many things, right? And otherwise, it would be very difficult to have that kind of collaborative environment. And what is the value of that? Is yes, there is a $1 trillion value of the Google platform, but I think as a society, this value is way more than what the company value, right? Similarly to that is these are the tangible which can be measured, the value which they will get, like 20% of the reduction of the cost just by that. But there's an intangible benefit can be directly proportional to the company's balance sheet. And they need to really focus on that, the how to put the data governance as a part of the go to the balance sheet. And sometime in future, we can see that happening as well.
That's right. Andrew, in your experience, how have you been able to quantify the value of data governance?
I mean, it's obviously data governance in my industry still, it's still in its infancy, relatively speaking. But I think, just as Teresa said, there are two ways you can do it. You can show that tangible benefit in pound signs for us, obviously, and show what savings you've directly made to bottom line. I mean, that always keeps finance happy. And then you tackle it from a strategic standpoint. So when I said before about having the governance sort of framework supporting the business strategy, it's just about tying what you've done to specific strategic business objectives. So the usually laid out at the start of the year, and we'll lay out a strategy at the start of the year for the governance framework, and make sure that the governance strategy is in line with the business strategy. And as I give updates to the to the senior leadership, I'm linking back the benefits and how it's made a difference to their strategic priorities. I think that always gives them a really tangible understanding of how I'm benefiting what they're trying to achieve, as well as the other stuff, which is just I've saved this much money from the bottom line. That stuff's is just saying, it's just maths. It's working out how much time have you saved and how much would you have paid that person to do it, so on and so forth. So yeah, that tends to be the route that I'm taking for us.
Okay. And do you use any specific tools to calculate the ROI?
So I wouldn't say tools, probably methods. So for example, we would have FT time cost saves, that's full-time employee cost savings. So where we've had a process where it's been quite manual in terms of data transmission, transformation, and production, it's literally an 8-hour working day divided by the pro rata salary equals your hourly physical hourly rate times the number of hours that you've saved with the process improvements or the data improvements. And certainly that's great for FTE, but obviously we have contractors as well, so it's even better for contractors because they're on a day rate, and where we've been able to do cost avoidance calculations. So we'll do the actual cost save, but then cost avoidance, where we've not had to have a contractor come in on a day rate. We can then say this is the cost that we've avoided, where we've had similar projects in the past where it's needed a contractor to come in and complete the work. We can show where we've avoided having to do that in this case.
Brilliant. Teresa, do you use any similar methods? Do you have any tools that you'd suggest?
I think there's an opportunity for a tool, but I think that it would have to rely on an interview process because, again, the definition of your data governance program, and everybody takes it from a different vantage point. Some programs begin, like Sharad said, from the compliance department. Others begin in the data architecture department. So it's really hard, depending on where it's birthing in your company, to have a standardized tool. And I think that what Andrew said was absolutely dead on in that, you know, you've got the different methods that you apply. And the last thing that I try to point out is the value of the organization's reputation. Because of the governance and compliance benefits, how do you put a value on your reputation and the reduction of your exposure? So I always end any kind of an ROI or a financial conversation with that point, that thing that you can't really add a dollar sign to. And otherwise, I think what Andrew said was absolutely perfect.
Thank you, Teresa. Sharad, do you have anything else to add to this?
I think that what Teresa said, that there should be an interview process, and I think the overledge should have another module to do the interviews.
I can help you with that.
Yeah, so it can help you do that. But I think that, as you said, that, you know, there have to be interviews. There are the methods to interview people to find out that, you know, how much the savings, how much the benefit they're really getting out of it, and that can be directly translated into the value of the data governance. But really the tools are just a calculation part of it.
Yeah. Okay. And staying with you, Sharad, you obviously, with overledge, you help businesses who require support with their data strategy. They want to be able to automate some of these processes, make it easier to introduce and implement data governance. What does a business look like without a data governance strategy in place? Where will the absence of these provisions be most detrimental, do you think?
So I think if you have the data dispersed in different, or, you know, if you're a very small company, you can live without data governance. You know, if you have one ERP system already have all the governance you needed in that. You really do not need a data governance strategy if you have only one system which can take care of that. But practically, it is not possible. The reason you need the data is in dispersed systems. Even the company as little as ours, you know, we have 7 or 8 systems where the different data sets are, different data are. If you go to any other larger organization or Andrew or Teresa is working for, right? You have hundreds or not thousands of systems. And to get the value out of those systems, it is highly important to have some strategy of the data governance. Otherwise, it's just a chaos. It is a chaos. It's just, again, they said that you're trying to run a country or a department or a unit without solid, you know, principles and how you're going to communicate, how you're going to collaborate. You need a basic foundation of that. And the data governance is the basic foundation for all of these things. Why it was not there before? Because the data was not the new thing at that time. People were actually doing the business processes transformation, putting the data was underneath it, and they are fully focused on digitizing the business processes. So in the first generation or the first decade of this century, people are just digitizing their business processes. Underneath that, the data was getting generated and also getting governed with the Oracle ERPs and SAP systems. The data was well governed, well defined policies was there, but the interconnectivity was not needed. But because of the demand now, that people realize that if we can get the value which is coming, you know, if I am having a retail system, if the retail system is I'm having the transaction, if my credit card number can we directly deal with the purchase I made, and the next time I come, what kind of recommendation they can provide, you know, because of the technology is providing that. So it's required the integration of various systems now. Earlier, that systems, neither the technology was not there, nor it was a need for, not there was a need because the technology was not there. Now the technology is there, so the need is coming. So the need is coming, so that's why you need governance principles. So that's why it's an emerging need to have a proper governance in place.
Thank you, Shrad. Andrew, what does a business minus a solid data governance strategy look like?
It looks like my daughter's bedroom, a complete mess where I can't find any. But no, I mean, I guess if you think of your business like a book, and that book could be a really big book if you've got a really big business, and that book tells your entire story of your business. But if you're missing the table of contents, the page numbers, and you know, your chapter names and things like that, it becomes a very confusing book. And it's exactly the same with data. If you miss all of this organization out, then you lose the understanding of what's going on. And I think that's the same with your business. You lose that intrinsic understanding of your business and where it's going, and how much time's been wasted doing unnecessary things. So I think that's how I would describe it, and where I think is the most detriment.
Thank you, Andrew. Finally, Teresa, can you give us your opinion on this one?
Yeah, I had a company for 10 years that focused on helping other organizations automate their accounting packages. So, and it was in the early 90s. And the difference between, so I have experience seeing companies go from pegboards and their payroll to being fully automated on an accounting package. So if you can imagine today having your organization operating without a centralized accounting package, you don't have those touched points that are between job costing and accounts payable and your accounts receivable. Now all of that is in one. So when you purchase a product, you assign it to the job, it goes to the job, it connects with receivables. You can't even fathom operating without a system like this in your organization today. And I believe that when you get a data governance, a high performance, good quality data governance program in place, you'll get the same feeling. How did we ever do this before?
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That's the end of my questions for you all, but we do have some from the attendees. So if I start with the first one, I think if I just put this question out there, and anyone that feels qualified, even though you're all very qualified, feels best qualified to answer it, please just go ahead. So question one is regarding data governance and data management. In your experience, are they similar or complementary concepts?
There's a standoff now. Who's going to answer it?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Data management and data governance. I mean, in my opinion, they're pretty similar. Yeah. I mean, how we manage data. I mean, data governance gives us the framework for data management. So you know, I think they're one and the same thing in my opinion. I think there was an extra piece on that there, wasn't there? I think. For example, security is part of a data management. I think that's
and the end of the question. This was from John Santafe. He believes, understands that security is part of data management. So, I mean, how does that differentiate data management from data governance?
Well, I mean, the different departments have the different functions, and data security, you know, falls in, for us at least, falls in with IT security. So how data's secured and that it's secured within the software packages that we use is controlled by and signed off by our IT security team. So where data governance fits in is that we work with the other teams. So we work with compliance for things like GDPR. We work with you know, IT security for data security, and then obviously they'll work with us as well when it comes to you know, applying the governance framework. So you really are a collective of teams working together to achieve the overall data governance framework.
Thank you, Andrew. Does anyone else have anything to add to that question?
I think that I will take a little bit on that is that I still feel that they both are synonym of each other. It is just a data governance have like as I say that just like you govern countries in different fashion, whether it's a communism versus socialism versus capitalism. Similar to that, that some people say data management have these things, some data governance have these things, but they are synonym to each other. And I would still some people will say the security comes under data governance while the business philosophy comes under data management. There are obviously there are a lot of debates into that, the different outcomes of that, but I still feel that they are the same thing. They are not ultimately the objectives are same, to manage data or to govern data, whatever you call it, but in order to and establish a some sort of a person behind it, right? So it's head by CDO. Generally, the data governance strategy should be headed by a CDO. If the title was not given to them as a CDO, it should be given for the betterment of the company. Although the person who is leading that effort, he or she is a CDO, but the title is also important to create that awareness in the organization that the data is important, and it is important for the company, and it is important for the governance is the key foundational principle for the managing the data. And so that I would say that.
Thanks, Sharad. I said that I was going to say the questions and give everyone a chance to answer, but I'm not going to do that now because there are two questions left, and one is very much for Sharad and one is very much for Teresa. So, Teresa, I'd like to ask you this question. How do you see data decentralization in an organization? This is in reference to departments doing their own ingestion, ETL, and modeling.
Mm-hmm. I think that it's really common to reach a point where data becomes more decentralized in an organization. And I think that with the good data governance program, you will be able to maintain that decentralization strategy and maintain common definitions, share reusable code, replicate your metrics so that you don't have one department calling length of stay this and another department using a different calculation. So I would say that if decentralization is in your strategy, that you are absolutely going to want to make sure that you stand up a data governance that will make sure that those points are respected.
Brilliant, thank you, Teresa. Sharad, this is regarding overledge specifically. We have a question from one of our attendees. How does overledge compete with some of the bigger data catalog organizations like Calibra, Informatica?
Evaluate and see. I think we have more features and functionality than Informatica, Calibra. Informatica is also ETL player, so we are not ETL space, but we definitely have more functionality than Calibra.
It's cheaper. It's cheaper.
And it's a comparative. That's right. So the both things are there, and I would say that.
Okay. We actually have another question coming in. So Sharad, we'll stay with you on this one. Data governance is inherently tied to business intelligence and analytics and data warehousing. Is this true?
I think right now it is true, but it is not always true. I think Teresa, I can see from Teresa right now, it is going to the application area, the microservices architecture. It is not only with the BI and IT, because the BI, it's always start from the BI group. It always, because they are the first, because they are the one who's dealing with the decentralized data and trying to put it together. So there's always need for it. But as Teresa is dealing with the, the microservices architecture and the applications, they are coming into the hand. So that is another need. So I think it's going every direction. Applications, software developers, and Teresa can put more light to that because she's really working on that area.
Thank you. And as I believe someone mentioned earlier, sometimes it's compliance that's driving data governance. But I do think that a large portion of the benefits of data governance will go to your business intelligence team, who will find even a challenge such as an upstream change can oftentimes break your BI assets, and you don't know until they're broken and you've got tickets. So you're going to reduce your problem tickets and have a higher quality of confidence in your BI reports, because you have the benefit of knowing what's changing upstream and being able to laser focus on exactly what you need in order to accommodate that upstream change. And I think that things like that end up falling to the data services or data business intelligence team have a great benefit to them. And oftentimes they're the first to the table to realize these benefits.
Thank you, Teresa. Andrew, do you have anything to add to this?
No, not to that. No, I think that's been covered well.
Brilliant. So we have another question coming in. Sharad, again, this is pretty much directed at the overledge team. How does overledge integrate with data security and tokenization tools, if you do?
Data security. So overledge have a feature to deal with the security. Overledge has its own security. So the security of the data is the key aspect of the governance, right? If you think from that perspective. So if you go to the applications area like SAP or microservices, those data is already secured within the applications. But really this need of security comes when the data comes into the data warehouses or data lake. There is no architecture that, how the HR data needs to be secured comparative to other data sources. When that comes to the place, overledge do have functionality where you can secure the data in data warehouses and data lake, but not in the application area, because application, we believe that it's mostly secured by the application itself. But through the data warehousing, you can adopt within overledge to have your own security model presented into it. And then you can also take the security, but does not mean that data warehouse can only be accessed through overledge. You may want your Tableaus and other applications directly also connected to your data warehouses. But in that scenario, those users needs to be integrated towards overledge. So there is a mechanism to integrate overledge with the data warehouses and get the security policies sync with it, so that you can either use overledge to manage the security, or you can use external system to manage your security, but you should use only one. You should not use both of them together. Otherwise, the synchronization doesn't work really well.
Okay, fantastic. I think that about wraps the session up. Unless anyone else has anything more to add before we sign off.
Well, I want to thank you, Karen, for managing this group, and thank you, Sharad, for hosting the event.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for coming in here. I think there is one more question.
Just sneaked in there at the very end, just as we all started saying goodbye. This is another question on overledge. Does overledge support data quality assessment and scheduled dashboard reporting? Is that something that overledge has?
I think we do have a data quality assessment features quite a bit, and it's in coming release, we are also coming up the full profiling capabilities. But right now we do have a data quality features, especially in terms of us understanding what the quality is, writing the rules around it, as well as the workflow to manage the quality, right? So where they're starting, how do you collect, what kind of problems are there in the data quality? So you need to also get the issues, what the quality issues are, governing those issues, and then writing the rules so that this will not happen again in future. Those kind of features we do have it.
Can I just say, if anything does come in at the end from any attendees that's specific to some previous questions?
Yeah, there is something in this side.
There's a couple of comments. Let me just have a look at these quickly to see whether it's best to answer these afterwards. But no, they're quite small questions. One for you, Andrew. When you're talking about cheaper services, is there a maturity curve where you can find this, or does any tool suffice?
I'm not sure I understand that question, but I mean, in terms of the cost of the software being quite a, you know, there's a significant cost difference, and I think I probably should elaborate on that, because cheaper doesn't mean, you know, any worse. I mean, I think that's for sure. It's for us, when I say cheaper, when I looked at the other options, and this also relates to Michelle's Bellamy's just after that says, you know, how does it compare to Calibra? Well, I looked at the other offerings out there. They were much bigger, and when you're starting from scratch, you have to take into consideration what kind of budget your organisation can stretch to, and also what they want to achieve in the short, medium, and long terms with the software. So for us, it was all brand new, and going in for something like Calibra or one of the other big governance tools, where it's a sort of a modular approach. You pay per module for what you want. It was quite a lot more expensive, but also it was the resource for the people that needed to support the software that we just did not have. You know, so I needed to make a case for data governance and have the right software to support it, and overledge fitted perfectly for that. And it gave at the right price as well. And it meant that between myself and the overledge team, we can set this thing up and we can get it populated, you know, and it did everything that we needed to do to achieve what we needed to achieve. And I think that going down a route of a much bigger piece of software that's really expensive from the start, you may well waste time working things out along the way and spending a lot more money doing that than going with a piece of software that is more refined to someone just setting out like we were. And so yes, I think that's important to note as well.
Another question based on that, Andrew, did you find it had all the connectors you needed?
Yes, yeah. So we use Salesforce technology. So and we also had we have Microsoft Azure cloud infrastructure as well. So we were using we needed a connection to our data lake in there, as well as direct connections to the Salesforce technology, as well as a few other older platforms. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how things are for you, Teresa, but we purchased because we're a huge recruitment company. You know, over the years we've purchased other recruitment companies and brought their systems in, and before you know it, you have lots of different data sources, some other legacy systems, and somehow you've got to kind of connect everything together. And you know, overledge had all of the connectors in there, which was one of the appealing points for us to, you know, to overledge.
I think
I think I will elaborate that a little bit more on the, you know, the cost of the overall cost of the software versus the overall cost. I think the one part of all the data governance people is that they have a hard time justifying the budget for the tool, right? That is the one of the bigger problem. Anybody would have it. With overledge, you can crawl, walk, run, right? You can start small. You can start the practices in the data governance. It is really working for you. And then you can improve more. You can add more number of users. You can add more number of databases. And that's how we work, so that you can kind of crawl, walk, run kind of. That is the main objective of overledge, is really to and as well as have the proper ROI as well. You know, we don't want to. So other, you know, the competitors, the problem with them is that you have to justify your ROI upfront. You invest heavily, and then you hope that your data governance strategy really worked, right? Now, in this one, that you invest only a little bit, and then you see that you're working, and then you invest a bit more to get more going. So that is the main difference between us and our competitors.
Yeah. Brad, can overledge catalog from Hive Metastore?
Yes, I came from Hortonworks Cloudera company, so this is the first connector we built.
Brilliant. And regarding this session, it's been a lively session. There's been some fantastic answers to the questions. Some really good audience engagement. It's being recorded and it's going to be available. I just want to ask you, Sharad, just to double check, because we've had a question coming in. Will this be shared directly with the attendees, or will it be shared somewhere else so people can access the video?
We should be able to record it and send it to attendees as well.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Well, it might finally be time to say goodbye. It's always a good sign if questions keep coming in, so that's brilliant. Thank you all very much indeed. And attendees, look forward to the next invite, because this is just session 1 of the Data Discussions Live, so there's another few to come.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.